It's that time again. Time for another half hour of Point of View. I'm Pastor Josh Barnes. This is the show where we're unashamed to look at political, social, cultural, and theological issues from a biblical point of view. We do that because it's true, and you can't be right if you disagree with something that is true, right? I mean, that's logic, right? Anyway, Jesus died on the cross, rose from the dead. That proves that the Bible is true because he said so. And a Christian who says that they are a Christian must believe that Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, and therefore should act like the Bible is true and shouldn't vote like the Bible isn't true, right? 60% of the Democrat Party is supposedly Christian. They believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross, rose from the dead, but they aren't voting like the Bible is actually true. And that's a problem. And we mean to fix it. That's what we're here for. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fix the Democrat Party. Well, we got to start with the Republican Party first. But Jonathan Barnes is here today, and we were doing just that. We were starting by fixing the Republican Party at CPAC a couple weeks ago. And Jonathan, what was your overall experience there at CPAC?
Well, I mean, I had a blast. I had a lot of fun. I've never been there before. Didn't really know what to expect, I guess, at some level. But there was a lot of excitement. Saw a lot of speeches, a lot of people that are much better speakers than I am, which is always inspiring. And I got to talk to a bunch of people and meet, a lot of the Ram family, which was pretty cool. Overall, just a great experience. I'd love to go again.
Yeah, and for Ram, when he says Ram, just so people understand, that's referring to Right America Media, which is the organization that sort of has birthed Point of View, and also is where one of the places where you can find Point of View. You might also be watching on FISM TV. You might be listening on K-Star Conservative Radio Network, or you might have just found us on YouTube. However you found us, we're glad that you're here. But Right America Media, or RAM, is our parent organization, and we do appreciate them. Now, so we went to CPAC. We did a lot of interviews. There's one interview between the two of us that hasn't been played yet on Point of View, and this is a really cool interview that you did. Actually, I think the first interview you did, you were not ready at all. You had not. By the way, I sort of tricked Jonathan into going to CPAC, saying, no, you won't do interviews. You're just going to be behind the camera. And then, of course, I had to leave early, and Juan, the creator of Right America Media, turns to Jonathan and says, hey, do an interview here. This guy, Neil Mammen, needs to be interviewed, which turned out to be pretty amazing. I met Neil just last week at the NRB convention, and awesome guy. We'll play more of that video here. But what were your impressions of Neil there, Jonathan?
Neil was a really great guy. He was really friendly, which was really nice for my first interview, since you're going to see I was pretty nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd seen some professionals kind of tackle it, but it was my first go around, so that was exciting. But no, Neil was great. Very nice guy. Just always a smile on his face, very understanding. And I loved everything that he was saying. I love his organization, Every Black Life Matters. He was wearing the shirt. It was really cool, and I had a blast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the tape.
Well, hello. This is Jonathan Barnes at CPAC 2022 with Right America Media. I'm here with Neil Mammen. How are you doing today, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Great to have you here. So we're talking about. So you have a shirt on called Black Lives Matter.
Well,
you might not think BLM would be here, but there's something different about your shirt. Give us an overview of your organization.
First of all, it's called Every Black Life Matters, and you'll notice that the baby's feet in the mother's womb and the umbilical cord is right there. So we're obviously not BLM. BLM is a Marxist organization, pro-choice, against the nuclear family. They're Satanists in many cases, and they are not going to solve any of the problems in the African American community. They say they're against police brutality, but they want to defund the police, and most African American families want more police presence to protect them from gangs and all the violence that's happening in their neighborhoods.
Now, you mentioned some of the problems in the African American community. Could you go through a couple of those and tell us how your organization wants to solve those?
Right. So we want real solutions, and the primary biggest problem in the African American community, and every African American person will tell you that who is educated, is fatherlessness. Fatherlessness in the African American community used to be under 25%. In the 60s, it is now 72%. The only thing difference between then and now was the welfare programs the LBJ pushed in, and his whole idea was let's get blacks voting for Democrats, and so they started pushing welfare on them. And welfare works the way where if there is a father in the home, you get less money. So once the father lost his job or something, then the mother was incentivized to push the father out of the home. From the 60s to now, we see the fatherlessness rate go from 24% to 72%. Now, what's the consequence of fatherlessness? Well, one, young women looking for a father figure, they tend to have sex earlier in life.
Right.
Two, young men are looking for father figures. They start joining gangs, looking for belonging. Gangs result in violence and drugs because they got to make their money from somewhere. And so what happens is all this causes more problems in the inner city. African Americans are only 13% of the population, but yet they are 53% of all homicides are committed by African Americans. Why? Because of the fatherlessness. You can see that all the way back to this socialistic program, Marxism, socialism, all related. And so Black Lives Matter is actually part of the problem. In fact, the very reason why we have a problem in the African American community is what Black Lives Matter is pushing more of.
Right, and we see all the time, the statistics are pretty clear on this. When a father figure is there, the chance for you to turn out, better in society, better socially, is just just higher. And
you can't argue with it. And
exactly.
you can't argue with that.
It's black and white. So you mentioned abortion. Give us a little bit more on that. What is your organization doing to fight abortion rates, specifically in the African American community, as they're so much higher than in the?
I don't know that we can fight it in the African American community right now.
Okay.
But we can fight it on the legislative level by pushing pro-life principles. I mean, and also by educating people. I don't know if you know that, but only 13% of the African American population of America is African American.
Right.
Yet 79% of Planned Parenthoods are in African American communities.
Yeah.
Now, why is that the case? Because they get money from the government. In fact, you can track all pain and suffering back to government money that's funding.
That sounds like real racism, right?
Yeah, it is.
Targeted to these African American communities.
Margaret Sanger said, we don't want word to get out that we want to eradicate the Negro population.
Right.
She was a eugenicist. She was a racist. She talked to the KKK. In fact, even Planned Parenthood in New York has come out and said, yes, she was a real racist. So our thing is, how do we solve these problems? And one of them is we can start incentivizing fathers to stay in the home. We'd like to reduce welfare, but we can't because everybody's going to complain. So what's a real solution? Let's go and give, if you're a father and you're married to that mother, and even if those kids are not your own, the fact that you're in the house and you're taking care of those kids, you should get more money than a person on welfare with no father in the home. This incentivizes them. And guess what? I'd love to have that argument with a debate with a Democrat. They're like, oh, you want to take money? No, I want to give more money. I want to incentivize. Now, should welfare come from the state? No, it should come from the church. But we're not there yet, and we were to cut welfare now, a lot of problems would be there. So we think this is the way to ease that in. Now, we have to look at the unintended consequences of giving more money to fathers. We have to understand all that. But that's a path there. Abortion, one is stop funding it. Why is the federal government funding abortions? That's just feeding into it. And then the other one that we talk about is the inner city schools are horrible. Why? Because there's no fathers, so there are gangs. So those kids the literacy rate at the height of racism amongst the African American community in the 1930s was 70%. Today, the literacy rate is 17%. And in Chicago, where we were just there a few days ago on the O Block in downtown Chicago, one of the pastors said, actually in downtown Chicago, it's 04% literacy rate. So how are these kids going to get educated? How are they going to learn anything? How are they going to get jobs at the minimum wage? And so there are two things that we're looking for is one, school vouchers. 68% of all black parents want vouchers, but the school unions won't have them. There's racism right there. And secondly, minimum wage is racist. It was started by racists in the 1930s because black men were willing to work for less than white men and were taking all the jobs. And so the KKK and the racists came up with the minimum wage idea, saying that only you had to pay a person what a white man charged. So now black men stopped getting jobs, and today it's the same thing because those inner city kids can't get jobs at $15 an hour because they can't earn $15 an hour.
Right.
But they could earn $5 an hour and learn to earn $15 an hour.
Yeah, develop the skills inside the job.
You need free market.
Now, you mentioned the education system. CRT, are you?
Yeah, we are active.
Are you active on that as well?
Yeah, we're very active on CRT. We're training people how CRT is actually more race system, and CRT is designed to create racial tensions. It makes no sense that a minority of people will ever attack a majority and try to make that majority. Because CRT says if you're white, you're evil. And worse than that, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But most Americans are not racist. I came to this country 40 years ago as an immigrant from Africa. I grew up in Africa. I'm African born, right? And I found this to be the least racist country of all the countries. I've lived in India. I've lived in Sudan. I've lived in Yemen. I've lived in Ghana. I've lived in Jamaica. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to China.
Got
I've
the
been to Europe.
experience.
I can tell you, America is the least racist country of all of them, because the average American does not wake up and saying, I want to oppress a black person or a white person or a brown person. And here's the funny thing. Indians make the highest median income. The next on the line is Taiwanese, and then as you go down a few, before any white people show up, the Nigerians and the Ghanaians make the most amount of money in America. And right at the bottom are the African Americans. So you can say it's not color.
Yeah.
It's the environment that they're brought up in and the social programs that they're putting them in.
Right. I understand. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the work you're doing, Neil.
Thank you very much.
Tell the folks at home there, where can we go? Obviously, we have your website
so
there. Any other contact information for
everyblm.com.
you?
We are a nonprofit. We are looking to influence legislation. We want your word in Congress. We want your help, and we can win this fight. I think we can win this fight.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Neil, for giving us a few minutes of your time here today. We're going to take it back to CPAC out in the main room, and everybody enjoy. Thank you very much.
That was a wonderful close. I love that. Everybody enjoy. I like it. That's great. Hey, look, I don't even have my first interview. I don't want anyone to see it. Forget it. But oh my goodness, you did a great job, by the way. But Neil, because I met him at CRT, I can attest, and I know you said it before I ever met him, and you were actually the one who recommended to me that I try to meet him at NRB. What a great guy. I mean, the guy knows his stuff. He's not just, out for publicity. Like, he knows the facts about, the statistics, the facts. He's in this work, and I mean, he's serious about it. He's sincere. Go ahead. Sorry.
Excuse me. So, what I liked about him was, I mean, you could see he was very gracious. It was my first interview. Very nice guy. Just had all the answers. I didn't ask a question where he was like, "Oh, well, I don't know." No, he's very, very involved with his work. He mentioned. So I went and I looked up a little bit more about him. He was born in Ghana to Indian parents. He's of Indian descent, but he was born in Africa. He grew up in Jamaica, Sudan, India, Ethiopia, and Yemen. He even grew up under Sharia law. His grandparents were evangelical, but he has all kinds of different influences on his life. Active socialists, communists, atheists, leaders of liberation theology, all sorts of different things. So it's not like it was, well, this guy, he was raised by, conservative Christian parents. No. He had all the different influence on his life, yet he came down very, very staunchly because of his life experiences right here, where he said, you know what, BLM is not the answer. There's something different. And he exudes that when you're talking to him. He's just, he's got a very positive outlook despite all of these things that he's fighting against. It's very, very cool. He's incredibly smart. His bio also says that he has degrees in computer engineering, electrical engineering, and solid state physics, and has co-founded 5 startup companies in Silicon Valley. He has 16 issued and pending patents. I mean, the guy's just so accomplished. I didn't even know this stuff at the time, but I mean, he's written books. He's just amazing, and his website, is just awesome. So yeah. I love talking to him. He's a great guy.
And I think I've said this before. I don't know, but basically what we did at NRB, and we're going to play this video will drop tomorrow on YouTube. You'll be able to see the whole thing. If you want to watch it live, you can watch the first half live on FISM tomorrow at 4:30, and then the last half, because it's a 40-minute panel discussion. The last half will be played on Friday. So you can watch it over the next 2 days on FISM, or you can watch it all tomorrow on YouTube if you want to do that. But we're gonna we had a panel discussion with Neil, and with Kevin McGarry, who was the co-founder with Neil of Every Black Life Matters, and also a pastor named Stephen Broden. And it was so funny what you were talking about, how Neil is this techie guy. I mean, he's got so much technology, knowledge and understanding and education, and he's trying to explain to Stephen Broden before we get started about just like smartphones and just little things, that every millennial kind of already knows. But here's Pastor Stephen Broden, who's just like, I don't have any idea what he's talking about. I don't even know how this microphone
Kids and
works.
your technology.
I just talk into it. It was hilarious,
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious. You guys probably don't. It probably doesn't hit most people who watch these things what the type of things that go on off camera, but there's a lot of interviews where as an interviewer, you're actually speaking to this person, and once the lights are off and the camera's not rolling, you see kind of more who that person really is. And a lot of times you're finding out like, yeah, it's not a great person.
Yeah.
Neil is definitely not that way. I want to hone in on some of the things he said, if you don't mind. Let's talk a little bit about that first thing. I like that on his shirt he's got a picture of baby's feet in the womb, and he says every Black Life Matters, which shows that his organization specifically targets abortion, which is, as he mentioned, so very obviously a racist organization. This is something that I'm just shocked the Democrats get away with. I'm absolutely shocked that they get away with taking our tax dollars, giving it to a racist organization, say that we are anti-women if we demand that it not go to racist organizations that murder black people on purpose, and then turn around and say, you guys are racist.
Yeah. Like you said, it's in this day and age where we have the internet, anybody can look this stuff up. This is really obvious. Like he said, Margaret Sanger has been declared by Planned Parenthood to be a racist. She did this on purpose. Her avowed reason for starting Planned Parenthood was because I want to eliminate the black population. That was what she wanted to do. This is bizarre that in today's day and age, especially with BLM, with all of the, you can't say even the slightest thing that might be construed as racism. But yet we can have this organization that's founded upon still incredibly racist. You look at the communities, and where do they put Planned Parenthoods? Generally speaking, they put them right in the middle of black communities, like heavily black communities. And it's because they're trying to eradicate black people, which is incredibly racist. There's nothing more racist than that.
I wonder if the goal hasn't shifted. I think Margaret Sanger was trying to actually wipe out the black people, but I wonder if it hasn't shifted now for Democrats. And I think maybe the goal now is more keep them as a minority so that we can say that they're oppressed because they're a minority, and then turn around and use it to manipulate them for votes, which I think is what the Democrat playbook is. Hey, look, this is a great population for us to try to manipulate for votes, which is just sad and, of course, racist, right?
Right. Right. That makes sense. But I mean, it's still, at the end of the day, you're killing black people for your cause, for your purpose. Yeah. And even if it's not to completely eradicate them, it's to use them in a certain way. I mean, sounds a lot like slavery to me,
Yeah. I saw a statistic, and I don't remember where I saw it or what the number was. So, I'll have to look it up and find out for sure. But there was a statistic I saw that calculated if abortion had never existed, if Planned Parenthood had never existed, because of the disproportionate amount, by leaps and bounds, way more black children are being killed with abortion based on the what is it per capita, based on the in proportion, right? A hugely large proportion of black children are killed versus white children. That there was a statistic that calculated it all out and said that the black people in America would really not be much of a minority at all anymore if it weren't for Planned Parenthood and abortion, which is just, it sort of underscores what I think might be the nefarious point here. And I think that goes to the one thing that every Black Life Matters doesn't want to admit, the organization, and that is that, excuse me, I say that in a way that sounds nefarious. It's not, and I'll explain in a moment. That the real racist organization in America, the real systemic racism, is the Democratic Party and always has been. And every Black Life Matters, when I was talking to them in this panel discussion, I'm going to play you just a clip from it. I was talking to, I said, are there racist organizations in America? And Kevin McGarry went on a long, long spiel about this one organization that he wouldn't name, but it was clearly the Democrat Party. And then I said, would you name the organization? He said, I don't want, the reason he said, I'm not going to name it. It's obvious who it is, but I don't want to name it because people think, you're not biased. You're political. And he said, no, it's just facts. This is what the case is. And then Pastor Stephen Broden said, I'll name it. It's the Democrat Party. But let me see if I can play, if I can land on just the right spot. Let me see if I can play that clip for you. Let's go there now.
Some systemic institutions that are systemically racist. It's a different conversation. It's not America, but there are some there's a couple of institutions that actually fit the systemic definition of racism.
While that's on your mind, would you name an institution that you
Sure.
think is...
So first and foremost, there was an institution that was around in the 1800s. That particular institution was led by white, supremacist, hateful, racist people. That particular faction of people made sure to enslave as many blacks as they could. And that particular institution made sure that people that shared their faction of mindset were over courts, and they were judges and legislators. And so when we had Dred Scott, when we had Jim Crow, when we had black codes and those things that would have made a difference and ended slavery early, that particular faction of people made sure that they would keep blacks under the thumb and keep them enslaved. That particular faction, when Abraham Lincoln passed Emancipation Proclamation, hated that, and Abraham Lincoln was then, of course, he was then assassinated. His vice president was of this particular faction, and his vice president said, "Look, even though Abraham Lincoln signed off on 40 acres and a mule, we're going to take that off the table because blacks don't deserve it." That particular faction of people, when we had the Homestead Act, they made sure that they had their overseers over the Homestead Act. Homestead Act, of course, would provide lands and parcels. So when blacks were set free, they would have the ability to till the land and make a way for themselves. But that particular faction oversaw the Homestead Act and made sure that all of the people that oversaw the Homestead Act gave parcels of land to newly immigrated Europeans and not the blacks that it should have gone through during Reconstruction. So that particular faction, then, when we had, during Reconstruction, they wanted to make sure to defile blacks as much as possible and make it as difficult as possible. So they basically instituted the KKK to try to keep blacks in line. Then, when they heard of eugenics, when eugenics came about, that particular faction came on board. That particular faction is white supremacist, racist, and all of the disparaging things that we can talk about today. To this day, they're in favor of eugenics, and that particular faction just happens to be still around. So when they talk about reparations, reparations is always for, you get reparations from the parties that actually did the harms. And I say, since this particular faction is the one that did the harms, when we talk about reparations and they're so hair on fire about it, great. Give us the reparations. You're the ones who actually did this. There was a faction in America in the 1800s that precipitated this. Systemically racist by definition. And that particular faction should pay if we're going to go down that line. Now, the other one would be critical race theory.
Okay, and so I won't play the whole thing just because that's just a teaser for tomorrow. You're going to see the whole thing, 40-minute interview. But I thought that was an excellent point, and I really want to help these guys at Every Black Life Matters. They're doing an amazing job, and they're calling out. Honestly, Jonathan, you and I can sit here and we can talk about it, and we can point people to the scripture and say, listen, this is unbiblical, and this is wrong, and this is not okay. But because the argument from the other side is you can't even speak to this because you're white. Now that's a nonsense argument, but it does make it even more powerful when these men come out with not being white and say the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love the organization because they do. We talked about this a little bit, I think a few days ago. They're not just trying to attack, excuse me, the black community. A lot of times, you can see kind of, when we open the debate, when we start talking about these things, it can be like, oh, black people, they commit most of the crime and all this stuff. And that's not the way to go about it. They actually are looking to solve the problems that the black community faces. And that's how we reach out to people who might not be just like us. It's not, we talked about abortion, but they're also involved in active fatherhood, the nuclear family, free markets, educational choice. You heard him talk about educational choices not being put in these garbage schools that happen to be in their districts and everything. And they have to just stay there for 12 years of their life. They're not learning anything. They're involved in nonviolence. These are the core principles of the site, just directly from there. And it's not about attacking other people and saying, well, you guys are voting wrong and you guys are doing this. These things might be true, and the stats are the stats. But instead of throwing statistics in people's faces, and instead of doing that, what if we actually address the issues that they're facing and show them that, the Democrat Party is not addressing these issues. They say they're going to, but you've been living under them for decades, and in many cases, even longer.
They're the ones that started the issues, right? They're the ones that so the Democrats have always been the problem for against the fight against racism. And there's nothing has changed except that they want to now convince people that something has changed. Jonathan, what was the last White Mountain Munchies that you ate?
I think it was it the Christmas? I think I have one bag left, and it's the Christmas version.
Stuff is great. You can only get it at Christmas time.
Delicious.
But guys, this is non-GMO, gluten-free. It's a snack food. It's made by a Christian guy, and you can promote shows like Point of View on the Right America Media Network by going to whitemountainmunchies.com, putting in the promo code RAM at checkout. We really do appreciate it. We'll see you next time right here on Point of View.